And we are live. Hello, everybody. It's been a while. I'm Allie Wyatt. I'm the co founder and CEO of Female Founder Collective. And this is a series where we get to interview incredible founders and experts and executives on their path to success and the ins and outs of everything that they've experienced along the way. And a quick sort of plug for our very exciting private community that we have, which is called the 10th House. And the 10th House is a place where you can come and you can find other founders by stage, by industry, by geography, by whether or not they have fundraised, so that you can find all of the resources you need that are vetted with amazing testimonials from other founders. And it's also a place where you can get access to extraordinary programming, workshops that are skill building that we host every single week. And you'll get to do this alongside these other founders who are similarly gold and like minded. But today, and excuse me, guys, because there was construction going on, of course, outside of the room, my office right now. I'm very excited to be here with Julianne Fraser. I'm gonna read your bio, but then I want to hear from you more about your journey and how you started Dialogue. But she is a digital marketing expert, which we need more of those in the world, and founder and CEO of Dialogue New York, a leading global digital marketing consultancy with an emphasis on influencer marketing. Julianne launched Dialogue in 2017 with a mission to connect thoughtful brands with creatives to develop meaningful dialogues that resonate with consumers, and works with clients like Seed, Gold, which I'm a big fan of, Trinity, Gia, Little Spoon, among others. Dialogue supports various elements of clients' marketing efforts, from social media strategy and content to influencer relations, affiliate marketing, partnerships, and event ideation and execution. It's truly extraordinary. Through her work, clients have seen consistent growth in both social following and year-over-year revenue, which is probably the most important thing. But Julianne, I want to hear from your words, sort of how you got to launching Dialogue. What was the impetus for it? A lot of us, if we're doing well in our careers and we find a career that we love, it's hard to sort of break out and do something on our own.
Right.
So what sort of led you to do that?
Yeah. Well, I initially kind of fell into the world of digital marketing right around the time that Instagram launched. So it was right after graduating from FIT almost a decade ago. And social media was just sort of, believe it or not of much importance back then in terms of sort of the greater
Isn't it
marketing.
funny? I thought it was like a flash in the pan.
Honestly, it was testing. Nobody really paid attention, so it was an opportunity to test and learn and try. But I started at Morgan's Hotel Group, which was previously Ian Traeger Hotels, and was allowed to really test and try and sort of help build out their social digital strategy. And from there, kind of moved over to Lacoste, managed their digital communications in North America, and then joined what was a startup accelerator at the time that really helped Series A and Series B startups grow. And so throughout my career, I was learning quite a bit about social media marketing, but also dipping my toe in this world of influencer marketing, which was right at its kind of precipice way back when. And in 2017, when I launched Dialogue, I just felt like there was a really big opportunity to help kind of define strategy for influencer marketing, because at the time it was really very much the wild, wild west. I can say even more so today, it still is the wild, wild west. And I think there's so many different approaches and so many different agencies and experts that will tell you a different strategy, but really found that kind of taking a hybrid approach of everything that I learned throughout my career was really valuable for many of these companies, both established corporations and early stage startups that were really trying to kind of build community and what I call the sort of halo effect around their brands. So I decided to kickstart and take a leap of faith in 2017, and it's been almost 4.5 years, so it's gone really quickly.
Wow. So 4.5 years, and you just had to navigate through the pandemic. you were only in business for like a little over 2 years.
Yeah.
When the pandemic came upon you, can you talk about maybe some of the biggest things that you learned as a business owner? I mean, that we work with a lot of brand partners, and there was a real downturn in
Mhm.
budgets, right?
Mhm.
So how did you weather through and come out on the other side okay, and able to still pay your people and keep certain accounts? Or did you sort of shift the types of accounts you were working with?
Definitely. So, I mean, there were so many different shifts, that came into play with COVID. But first of all, I have worked kind of remotely. I split my time between New York and Paris. So I've really established a way to work with my team remotely from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So super fortunate that we had the systems in place and kind of the familiarity of working remote, and a lot of my team is based in different areas. So I think that was a really big advantage because it wasn't a huge shift for us to kind of transition to remote.
Can you maybe share what some of those tactics or strategies are for working remote? Because I think, we're in a world where a lot of companies, like FFC is distributed, right?
Yeah.
We have people in Denver, in Los Angeles, and New York, and Florida. So, any advice? And also different time zones.
Yeah, lots of different time zones. We have
Paris.
team members on Pacific, and a majority of our team's based in New York, and I was in Europe. So I think what I've kind of come to realize is it really, really requires a ton of trust. Trust for my team to trust me as a founder, and also vice versa. So I think it's so crucial to really build that with your team. We're a team of 7 now, and I think it's so important that we have sort of these like structures in place. So we're really specific in how we kind of time block our calendars. So, Mondays and Tuesdays are sort of internal work days. Wednesdays and Thursdays are all of our client meetings. And then Fridays, we really dedicate to brainstorming and the creative side of our work, making sure that we carve out time. So I think having that structure in place and kind of familiarity week after week was really important, but also knowing that, I'm a big believer, and I think this has really come to light with the pandemic, that everybody works so differently. And, being so specific with a 9 to 5 work schedule was really part of the reason why I started Dialogue in the first place. And I'm a big believer in working really smart and not necessarily, having to like pretend to work till a certain hour, which I definitely did back in the day at my corporate roles. But just really adapting, if someone's a morning person, what works best for them in their hours. If someone's, brain clicks on in the evening, and really having that adaptability and flexibility is important. So I think it's a combination of definitely like very much organization and structure to our weeks, making sure that everybody has those times throughout the week to touch base, but also the flexibility for people to dictate what schedules work best for them, which can be scary for some founders. But I found with trusting your employees, it's something that
Isn't it
pays off.
amazing that then there's just that inherent accountability because there's an appreciation of
Yes.
that trust? I
Yeah.
love that. And then any platforms that you use?
So we're, I mean, very much as with everyone, we're really dedicated to Zoom, all of our chats. And that's a tricky one too, because, I think we went from a place where a lot of our client calls were phone calls back in the day, a couple of years ago. And now a great deal of our days are spent on video, which I think really helped us connect when we were all around the world. But also being respectful of, that's why I kind of carve out those days where we don't have meetings, like Mondays and Tuesdays, so that the team can kind of have that ability to not always have to be on. So I think, and Slack obviously has been a big advantage to kind of just keep in touch and work quickly. But in truth, I've tested a lot of different platforms, and we have developed our own sort of systems and Gantt charts and ways to kind of project manage ourselves. So I think it's different for every company, but we've definitely found like our Dialogue method has worked best that we've created.
And let's talk on the subject of influencers and some of the common myths, because you've been vocal about sharing that, there's a lot of things that are sort of misunderstood about it. Can you sort of speak to what dialogue does, specifically, and your own philosophy on influencer marketing, and maybe how it's shifting and changing
Definitely.
as the platforms that we're using and spending time on change?
Definitely. So I think our two main philosophies is sort of this layered approach to influencer marketing, which I can share a little bit more about, and then longevity of relationships is sort of our bread and butter. But as a start, I mentioned at the beginning, so many different players in the world of influencer marketing. So you have a ton of, PR firms that really understand the relationships and creativity behind influencer marketing. You have a lot of performance marketing agencies that understand the trackability and the importance of driving concrete returns through influencer marketing, and then a ton of these platforms that have emerged, Creator IQ, Grin, Tribe Dynamics, it's endless, really trying to help automate, speed up sort of the management process. And so we kind of take a hybrid approach, taking all of those considerations in place, and really just kind of believe that what has worked for many of our clients is this layered approach. So each month we are securing a set number, anywhere from 40 to 50 micro mid-tier influencers who are guaranteed to post in exchange for just product gifting. So that's sort of an always-on UGC layer one. And then we'll work with certain influencers for content collaborations. So some of these creatives are photographers and videographers and copywriters, and they're some of the best, and they know what works best on social media. So we'll engage a lot of these influencers for photo shoots or video campaigns in a paid capacity. So that's sort of layer two. We'll do sort of tastemaker events and experiences. So for some of our clients launching new products, as we're coming back online and meeting in person, we'll re-engage and build out those relationships. Affiliate marketing, if it makes sense, paid campaigns. So if the budget allows, we take a very different approach in how we're managing paid influencer campaigns. And it's kind of through all these multiple touch points with a really wide variety and diversity of the influencer community that we start to build these halo effects around our clients, that you see them everywhere, and it's that sort of consistent buzz. Our other philosophy is really the longevity. So we're thinking of not only how can we introduce an influencer to the brand day one, but really bring them along this journey to re-engage them and build them into ambassadors over time. So we're thoughtful on how do we, maintain those touch points and offer them value beyond product, beyond paid, so that they feel really connected and loyal to the brand.
I love that. And how do you, because there are so many companies that are at different stages, and we have a lot of founders within our 10th house community that are often asking, when do I bring on an influencer agency versus do stuff direct myself? How do you know, perhaps, or what are some signals that it's the right time to do that? What are some signals to highlight the fact that you're maybe a little too small, or that maybe you should bring this department in-house? Can you share some sort of thoughts on how, when you're advising companies on what services are relevant from what you offer, they should perhaps utilize?
Yeah, so I'm really transparent about this with all the founders that I connect with. I think there is definitely, I call it a secret sauce to the timing of when we're best engaged. And I'm really honest in the fact that I really think that a lot can be achieved in-house and organically first. So generally the secret sauce that I talk about, in order for us to build out this strategy and campaign to really build momentum, there has to be a certain level of brand equity built for the brand. So a strong aesthetic, a really beautiful, photography style, a great website, and established social media. So at least, say 20,000 followers on Instagram, or a certain level of credibility, because influencers, the first thing they'll do is look at Instagram page as almost like your website for a point of credibility. Yeah. A little bit of press and notable pieces to give you sort of that credibility, and some organic, either celebrity or influencers that stand by your brand. And it's through sort of all of that combined that we then can go out and sort of present a brand to the influencer community as this, this exciting new brand that they want to be a part of. If you jump the gun and start pitching without all of that in place, then you get really, really high fees. Basically, you're asking for a favor, and you want to be in a position where you're excited to present a brand that they're really eager to learn about. So I always say that in order to build that foundation, there's so much that can be done in-house through the founder reaching out and sharing their mission and story directly, seeding, gifting, really building out that brand marketing halo, and not really thinking about engaging a agency until you have all of those pieces in place, because then we can just kind of hit the ground running, but it's tricky to do so without it.
And do you only recommend influencer marketing for product or consumer companies? So consumer products, I should say.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's another really great point. Not necessarily only consumer products, but I do think that it is the buzzing marketing tactic of the moment. And every brand is super, super excited to get involved. But at the end of the day, it's not for every brand. And whether or not it's a consumer packaged good or not, a service, a physical retail location, there might be other tactics that will be far more beneficial. It could be out of home advertising. It could be, really ad spots and television. You have to look at where, the ABCs of marketing, where your consumers are, how best to reach them, and what's the demographics of your target consumer? Are they on TikTok and Instagram, and are they influenced by these creators? So I would say the vast majority, for sure, there's a lot of opportunity, but that also is a question that I, off the bat will ask many clients that we're looking to work with is this the best use of your budget right now? Because so much of that foundation I was speaking about can be accomplished in other ways. And so it's not necessarily like a guarantee for every brand that this is going to pay off.
Right. And sort of on that note, I would bring up channels, right? Because a lot of times, like us personally, we're like, should we be on TikTok? Like, I guess theoretically almost everybody should be, but should they be? So I think that's another big question that a lot of founders are asking themselves. There's like, what is it okay not to be on every channel? And how do I select which channels are best for my particular business?
Totally.
So, that.
Yeah, I think certainly I'm a big believer that do not launch on a channel unless you have the resources to manage it and do it well. These platforms, when you expand to every new platform, it's a different content strategy, a community management strategy. It's a lot of work. And just because you're on it doesn't mean that it's going to pay off. You definitely want to have the resources in-house to do a great job. So I would really caution to say, do a great job with one or two platforms first before you expand to all. But also, when we start with every new client, we do a pretty extensive audit and strategy phase. And we dive into customer demographics and really understanding who are you targeting, what are their values, where are they located, what other brands are they following, to understand and really dictate what platforms make most sense. So most recently, we're dabbling in Twitter for a certain beauty client because that's something that's really highly engaged, but we would not recommend that for other clients of ours. TikTok, sure, it's phenomenal, and the algorithm
would not be an obvious one.
Yeah, you wouldn't think so, but definitely it's kind of has like little niches of engagement that we're going to test and try. TikTok has a really young demographic. I think the average age range is around 21 years old. So you have to think, if you have a luxury product where you're targeting a millennial later stage consumer, that might not make sense. It's also a very raw and authentic platform. So if, again, luxury brands that have really high standards of brand representation have to be careful, because that doesn't work well on TikTok. You have to really kind of work with these creators that are a little bit more raw. Yeah. So it's all part of, I think that's like the most important thing is this strategy phase, which can either be done by an agency or a brand in-house, is asking yourself these questions up front before you dive in, because it's so much easier to kind of navigate and figure out the right approach rather than having to backpedal when you've already launched on a platform and realizing it's not working.
And what are some of the components of the strategy if somebody were to do it in-house, right? What if they're not at that stage where they should be going out and hiring an influencer agency? They're not nearly to that 20,000 mark on
Mhm.
social. And then when they're thinking about sort of sourcing this headcount internally, what types of resources would you recommend against managing, call it one or two social channels to begin with?
Definitely. So, sort of the components of our strategy start off with a industry analysis. This industry changes every single month, if not every single week. So knowing the trends, the platforms, the approach. Most recently, I was reading about the anti-influencer model really taking off with brands like Human Race, Pharrell's beauty brand, and Revolve launching its ambassador program. There's a lot of evolving, shifting trends. So I think it's important to stay on top of that and do your due diligence up front. Competitive analysis, really seeing what your competitors are doing, what's working, what's not. Then we kind of dive into defining influence. And I think this is really important because influencers is really vast. We have many ways of defining, an influencer, but our kind of main criteria is the type of influencer. So, a traditional digital influencer whose full-time job is managing their social channels and developing content versus a tastemaker who might be a founder, an athlete, an activist that has created social reach as a result. And then there's also the expert type of influencer, doctors, nurses, nutritionists. All of these different types of influencers need to be approached very specifically and differently. So important to kind of define what types make most sense for your brand. And then tier, obviously, industry standard, micro, nano, micro, mid-tier, macro, and then category. Just because you're a beauty brand doesn't mean you only should work with beauty influencers. So there's lifestyle, fashion, beauty, culinary, parenting. There's so many different categories. So I think really defining that way of curation up front is super crucial. So that's sort of like our next stage. And then we think about really the creative brief so what are the main messages that our clients want to get across? What are the aesthetics and sort of visual standards? And that also helps us with the curation process. So we know not only how to pitch and present the client to the influencer community through messaging, but also what types of influencers we're looking to work with that align with the visual aesthetic. And then, the relationship roadmap, how do we build these out in re-engage influencers at month 0, 3, 6, 9, and how can we kind of think forward about what that will look like? And then finally, creative concepts, which I think is the most crucial part. We're marketers. This is a brand marketing, performance marketing split, but the brand marketing element is so important, and the influencer community is so saturated with opportunities that if you don't take the time to come up with really creative, thoughtful campaigns, ideas, partnerships that are catered to the influencers you're reaching out to, you're just not going to get the same response or the same passion from those campaigns. So taking the time to really think about, as you would any other marketing campaign across other platforms, what's going to inspire the influencer community. So I think that those steps can absolutely be done in-house and should tie back up to your greater brand marketing strategy. It can all kind of go hand in hand, but will really help guide your strategy. It'll dictate the platforms you're on, the influencers you work with, timelines, budgets, all of that.
I feel like every single person in our community should go through the steps that you just outlined to
Yeah, I love that. If anyone has any questions, because it's
so valuable. And that was actually so tactical, which is exactly
okay.
type of information we want to get out of this. So thank you for just sharing that wealth of knowledge. I want to flip the conversation actually over to you as a business owner. Again, and because we have a lot of service-oriented business owners within 10th House and Female Founder Collective. And with a lot of the questions that come up are, how do I think about pricing, right? And how do you know what that sort of right value to price ratio is?
Yeah.
So how have you thought about packaging your services? Was it organic? Was it something that was less organic? Can you kind of help shed light on that in your process?
Yeah. So when I started 4.5 years ago, it was just me. And I did a lot of testing and learning, and consulting is a relationship game. So I really believe in that flexibility and kind of testing and trying up front. So really I launched with a partnership deck. I didn't even have my website live. I had a beautifully designed deck that outlined, my capabilities, and just kind of leaned into my network from my career of we're 100% referral. So every client that we've ever worked with has been a referral. So I can't express enough for anyone looking to get into consulting. Relationships are the most important, because really that, your reputation and connections and relationships will really lead to growth. And also, as you mentioned, with the instability of something like a pandemic, I really leaned on my relationships across the board. So when I first started out, I had, I think, 3 clients to start. Each had very different scopes that they were looking for. I was really flexible on fees to kind of prove my worth. So at the beginning, I think it's important, definitely not to undervalue yourself, but be flexible and really kind of, I was looking to position myself as a cost-effective consultant that, rather than going with a really established large agency, they could save a little on my fees and really prove the value and the worth. My first client was Shiseido. It was an old boss of mine who was the VP of marketing there. And it ended up being like a 3.5-year relationship of us working together. So very grateful again for, her giving me a shot and a chance, but also I think it was a nice way for them to have what felt like someone who was an extension of their team. And then I think as you grow, that starts to level out. So the first year, I was really flexible. I was excited to win certain clients and really flexible on my fees just to kind of build up my portfolio. I test and tried many different scope options. So I was doing, affiliate marketing and events support and digital marketing and social media marketing. And I think throughout the years, we kind of fine-tuned our expertise and started to realize like, this is really what we're great at, and started to kind of filter that out. But I think it was important to test and try up front. So all that to say, I think don't be too overwhelmed with the resources up front. From a marketer's point of view, I thought I needed to have my company marketed perfectly before starting, but I wasn't on social. I didn't have a website. It literally started with a deck. And secondly, really be flexible in recognizing that just getting in the door and building out some case studies and some credibility and earning that reputation early on is so crucial. So having a little bit of flexibility on rates and scope is important.
Love that. And then as we sort of finish off, because we have about 1 minute left, yeah. I always like to, and sorry, trash truck right outside my door, hear the background noise. But I always like to get the best advice that you've gotten in your career, that specifically applies to you as a business owner.
Oh, wow. My God, so many. Interestingly, I think it probably would come from my dad, so far earlier than my career start. But he always taught me that, a reputation takes a lifetime to build and a split second to fall. And so I think, especially in a place like New York, which is, I've been here a decade and it's a tiny city. I mean, it's a huge metropolitan city, but it is so small and so interconnected. And I think just really focusing on building a reputation of working hard, being reliable, and great to work with, and is so crucial, because oftentimes, a lot of influencers we work with, agents we work with, partners, clients we work with, don't take that approach. And it always kind of shocks me, because I think it all comes full circle, and I really try and, lead with integrity. And sorry?
People can be short-term greedy.
Yeah. And I think it's just, and not recognizing that there's a human on the other side, and that you're working with, humans that you're going to come across many times. So I think that would be my biggest advice to anyone starting a consultancy, is just focus on your reputation and building genuine, great connections and relationships, because that's what will see you through in the long run.
Well, Julianne, it's clear why, you have a thriving service business, because you've already helped us all out so much just in this session. And we're so grateful for your wisdom and your time, and appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much. This is great. And if anyone has questions, feel free to get in touch. I'm happy to answer anything as you're going through the strategy phases yourself.
Awesome. We might take you up on that.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks
for joining.